Bad Blood was just over 3 hours with 5 matches. Your local indie show was 7 hours and 17 matches. WWE announces a Crown Jewel Championship that's too big to wear and too important to be at Crown Jewel. Ryback trolls CM Punk only to have the internet troll him right back. Today's show is early and ad-free if you're watching and listening on adfreeshows.com. Wait, was that an ad?
The Wrestling Hour starts now. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Wrestling Hour right here first on ad-free shows. Very pumped about that. Dave Sturchio alongside Josh Shernoff. Welcome back to the program. And we have ourselves a very loaded show. Josh, how we doing, man?
Oh, man, we're doing well. We got a lot to talk about and only about 59 minutes to do so. But first, yeah, man, adfreeshows.com. I'm officially back in the Ad Free Shows family. We did a show once upon a time called That Was Extreme, and I had the opportunity to host that, and now I'm back with our own show, which is really cool. From hosting to actually having our own show. There's no hosts on this show. It's just us.
It's just us. And I think the coolest part is, as a nostalgic wrestling fan like myself, just to see the lineup on ad-free shows of the other hosts and other shows that are on this thing.
Oh, yeah.
To be alongside those guys and as Conrad and company grow, I mean, it's awesome to be a part of it. So very, very pumped about it.
Yeah, they just announced Harvey Whippleman.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he's Mid-South, something else, something.
Memphis.
What the hell is
Memphis Memories, Downtown Bruno. Yep.
Downtown Bruno,
Yeah.
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Big announcement came on Monday night, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah. What came on Monday night? Raw, 2 hours.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
That's what came on Monday night. Raw was 2 hours long, no longer 3 hours. And I saw some people complain about that online.
I see a lot of complaints. I did.
And this was the best part. It was oh God, what's his name? This is the best part. The complaint was, oh man, it was only 2 hours. It like left me wanting more. It's like, yeah, man, for 12 years.
Dude, this is way too long.
Yeah, for 12 years, we've been like, God, I don't even want to watch this. I have to sit through this. And now the complaint is, it left me wanting more. That's what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to want more. Yes. Right. You're never supposed to watch a show and at the end of it go, oh, God, that was too much.
Right.
Like, so it's perfect. 2 hours, absolutely perfect, what it should be. And that's it.
Yeah, I think that, right off the rip, opening promo with CM Punk kind of teasing, gonna be done for a little while, take some time off, early retirement, all that other, that hoopla. And then it's interrupted by Seth, which is then interrupted by Jey Uso. And I'm like, what? How many promos can they fit in a segment? And there was literally 15 to 20 minutes of talking to start the show. And I'm all for that, especially when you could fit 3 superstars in there to cut their promos. I think that was well done.
I think it was really well done. I think the pacing and timing, and that's something we wanted to talk about this week, was just we joked about in the opener of the show is, a lot of people, my best friend in the entire universe, Matt Cardona, has gone on record about saying that indie shows are way too long. You do not need to have so many matches on there. And then they go on for hours and hours and hours. They're brutal. It's something that you and I know both take a lot of pride in. With Fight Factory Wrestling, and when I did the showcase shows, we took a lot of pride in the fact that those were always exactly right or under the allotted time. People are in and out. They have the matches that are appropriate. And I saw somebody equating the number of matches to the time and like, oh man, you can't have that. Well, okay, so I posted something about how we had 13 matches on the Wrestling Showcase event. And Dave Meltzer, friend of the show, Dave Meltzer, did I say Dave Meltzer? Dave Penzer.
Oh, I was going to say, wait a minute, hold on.
Oh, God. I always just have Meltzer's always on my mind. He's just always on my mind.
My money and my money on my Meltzer.
Yeah, God. So David Penzer, not Dave Meltzer. David Penzer commented, he also was observing my tweet, And he commented that it was like, oh man, I hope it was a tournament because otherwise 13 matches is too many. And here's what I explained to him. Like, yeah, the Wrestling Showcase is a tournament, but the one that I was referencing was one where it was with the network we were doing, and every match represented a promotion that was on the network. So we kind of were, held to having to let everybody who wanted to be a part of it be a part of it.
Is that the same showcase that every single promotion that we showcase sent their best of the best, and except for one company? Is that the same one?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I'm just making sure it was the same
Yes.
one. All right, go on.
So, but with that show, I remember telling Cardona, we got 13 matches. You're the main event, and Cardona's just like, God, I'm not going to be headed to the ring until like midnight because that's his experience at GCW and other places. And nice use of the cough button there. So
Wait,
you're trying to be.
Is that sarcasm, or like did I actually use it right?
No, you used it correctly.
Perfect. All right, this new Roadcaster is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's an endorsement on an ad-free show. Sorry, I'm not trying to.
Hey, they're not paying. You paid for that. That's not an ad. You bought it, right?
My Best Buy credit card paid for that. I'll pay for that eventually.
There you go. Now, all you can do, I think, if you just cut up the credit card, then it's gone. You don't have to. Do anything.
Shit!
Conrad will know. Talk to Conrad. He helps consolidate.
Somewhere,
it's
yeah.
something like that.
Okay.
But so Cardona was like, I'm not headed to the ring until like almost midnight. Like, this is going to be terrible. Like, dude, come on. Do we have to have all these matches? I was like, trust me. This is not some random indie. This is coming from me who has experience running these things. We're going to be done by 10:30. He's like, he's like, there's no way. We were off the air before 10:30. And
bravo.
So the way it was set up, there was a clock that was like a scoreboard, and there was a clock above the entranceway that we just couldn't get turned off. So the next day I shot a screenshot of that to Cardona of him walking out and what time it was and everything. And, but to his point, almost nobody does that. Today, I would say Fight Factory Wrestling does that, and I don't know if anybody else does. We just did WrestlePro. Holy crap. That was, awesome matches, incredible talent, great show, an hour and a half too long, super late night.
There's ways you can do that. Like, listen, what was the crowd engaged the entire time for every match? They were, right? So that's definitely the goal. But yeah, man, as a performer, we're technically, me and you are performing on the show as well, like the entire time. Like, it's a long night, man. Like, the referees, the ring announcer, everybody involved, even the guys, like you said, the guys in the main event, waiting. It's like one of those things, man, where you just know you got to take care of your boys a little bit better in that regard. And that's why for Fight Factory Wrestling, two shows in a row, we've kept it to 7 matches. Like, because we don't know. And look, one of the matches on the War on the Shore went fucking way over time.
Yeah.
But we were still able to get out of there before the impending fucking hurricane that wound up hitting us. But
hey, by the way,
make the light on hurricanes.
No, but
shout and pray for everybody in Florida right now about to get smacked with Milton. So that's
not looking good there. So everybody, pay attention, be safe. If you've been told to evacuate, hopefully you did. Hopefully you could. Hopefully you could. Right.
See that? There was the traffic was so bad, and then the flights went up, and it's like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Well, again, welcome everybody to the Weather Hour. Josh Shernoff here with Dave Sturchio. Here we can shift it back to wrestling. Shane Helms. So
there you go.
So the Bad Blood pay-per-view, it was 5 matches. Awesome. My only criticism, I don't want to say criticism, my only critique of it, which I don't necessarily have an answer to, was Hell in a Cell being first. In the moment, it was incredible. I mean, you're right off the bat into arguably the best Hell in a Cell match ever, in my opinion. It was tremendous. Their story has been awesome, Drew and CM Punk. All the way down to, man, when he took out what we thought was going to be thumbtacks, and it's the little beads from the bracelet. Like, it was just so good.
It's poetic.
The problem was the next match and the match after that. Like, how do you watch these two people go through hell and, you know, and then the next time you're just like, oh man, vicious drop kick. Like, you don't, and that's kind of, you know, there's a deeper lesson in there for wrestling in general. Like, you know, don't do 150 false finishes and Canadian destroyers in match one, and then, you know, match two we're supposed to care about. Like, that's, you know, generally speaking. But I think that with this, obviously knowing how things ended with The Rock, you know, I will say, in my opinion, looking at it in hindsight, now granted, I don't get to make these rules, and neither does anyone but The Rock. In hindsight, I think you could have kicked off the show with Cody and Roman and all of that, and then Jimmy Uso comes back, and then The Rock and everything, and we are just like, oh my God, this is insane. We're you know, emotional overdrive. But nothing happened in that match that makes you care any less about a wrestling move in match two and match three.
Right.
Now you're just hyped. Maybe even some of those things that were going on, you work, maybe you work something else in later in the night, right? To continue to tease it. Or maybe, you know, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, so 5 matches was refreshing. The order of it, maybe it couldn't have been fixed. Maybe it wouldn't have worked either way. And maybe that's just a commentary on the depth of WWE's roster and storytelling right now, that you're just like, we've got too many main events. And that's why they have SummerSlam's gonna be 2 nights now, you know?
Yeah. Listen, it's a good problem to have when you have a deep roster like that with all these superstars. And sometimes you're actually questioning, you know, when Orton came back originally and then CM Punk returned on the same night, and you started looking at the roster up and down, you're like, dude, there's not enough room for any of these guys. You know what I mean? Like, what are they going to do? But somehow, some way, shout out Triple H and Creative for just working it all out. I thought the pay-per-view was great, top to bottom. I thought the end, my only critique, and I'm a production guy, and I know you are too. Mm-hmm. If you noticed, is very easily noticed, Cody Rhodes is in the ring with Roman. He raises the belt, right? He does the whole raising of the belt, and then you see this blue light before the music hits. So, like, they actually hit some kind of laser or pyro or something, and I'm just like, what the fuck is that? I was like, oh shit, you know?
Yeah, that came on before.
That nanosecond of a time. And if you're in the crowd, I don't know if you
sure there wasn't like a lightning like effect, like sound effect to it, and like that was the intended start.
I didn't hear any sound. I just saw the light shine. Yeah. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And then nanoseconds later, the Rock's music hits. But then again, if you were in the crowd, dude, I don't know if you saw this, but, you know, fan footage, and, you know, yeah, we could talk about some of the fans that were there. Yeah. And I say fans, and I mean like supposedly journalists that were in the building.
In the press box, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Mark's in the press box. But you actually saw that they started laying out smoke way prior to, you know, and I'm like, yeah, they're all, the crowd's directing their attention. Now that's taking away from the element of surprise in the live crowd. I mean, look, the pop was, you know, fantastic.
I was going to say, I don't think it mattered in the long run. I agree with you, but I don't, you know.
The whole, did The Rock need smoke? Did The Rock need, you know what I mean? Did The Rock need, if you would have hit his music, it would have been fine. Just that way.
Call him Montez Ford. He wants the smoke.
He wants all the smoke. But then I don't know if you saw, like, this is now piggybacking off of this pay-per-view that I thought they hit a home run. Is just goes to that storytelling. Like, all of a sudden, you know, you got the guy who remember the guy who's in the crowd for the curtain call. Oh my God! Yeah. Oh my God! Right, that guy. Yeah, he was there again last night. I don't know if anybody knows, but he was the one that caught Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes talking shit to each other, and all of a sudden Kevin Owens beating the brakes off of Cody in front of his bus, and I'm like, I mean, what is that? Like, that hasn't been done.
That was tremendous. I thought that was so well done,
dude. Nobody saw that coming.
No,
it was just.
I will say though, people are out of their minds if they think that WWE did not have people there with their own phones.
Like I told you,
several people.
Like that guy.
Yeah, several people there making sure, that they got that, because some people are like, oh man, they just left it up to the fans. Like, no, they probably only used fan footage because they let them just run with it. But dude, come on, WWE's gonna. But I loved it. I loved that there were
number 6 with an iPhone. You're like, yeah, make sure you get over there now.
I have one. I don't want to say complaint, but I have one.
I'll be that guy.
I'll be that guy. My one issue with it was the separation, the people who separated them. That you're going general manager, referees, security.
Yeah, it should have been other wrestlers.
I was gonna say, if a fight started in a locker room for real, it's the talent that runs in and tries to separate it. Having said that, I get the idea that this is Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes. We don't want other talent. This can't now be where, Jey Uso's involved in some way. You know what I mean? Like we don't want to mix that up. But I think it's really cool what they're doing. I think it's fresh, man. It's a fresh take on storytelling, and they're utilizing social media in a positive way, which shockingly can be done.
Imagine it.
Really, really hard to do, but it can be done. Yeah, man, it was cool. I'm personally, to me, I would have loved to have seen that video posted on MyFandom App, myfandomapp.com, which, by the way, not an ad.
No.
Not an ad. This is just two friends talking to each other.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
And I'm just saying, MyFandom, who, of course, presents this entire production, I just wish, that maybe the fan would have posted it on the MyFandom app.
Still can.
They can,
Still
yeah.
can.
It's where they can post all of their videos and photos from the
Great
event
app
itself.
Great app.
So trolls. Because we're talking about the internet. Let's talk about trolls. Okay.
Sure. My kids love the show. Great movie.
Phenomenal. Most recent movie. Surprisingly, the music not as good as I thought it would be, considering we were kind of doing like a boy band shout out.
I thought it was Justin Timberlake the whole way, man.
I know. I just think the first one probably had the best album.
That's what dads talk about, by the way, nowadays, folks.
Yeah.
In case
hey, did you see the Moana 2? This ties in. The Rock. Yeah, the trailer for that.
Sure did.
It's gonna be
in theaters with my daughter.
I'll be there.
Sure will.
I mean, probably not in your theater, but I'll be there with my kids.
It can be arranged, dude. It can be arranged.
Yeah. So, that reminds me of when we were at SummerSlam, and Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa are there doing press, and somehow it turns into this whole conversation about Bluey and the dad from Bluey, Bandit Healer, and just how you just as a father can't compete with him.
You know what's so funny? I've mimicked him a lot. Like when my kids say something like silly to me, I'll answer them like Bandit somehow. Like what? Like just kind of just trying to.
I definitely have used the I'm hungry. Oh, hi, hungry. I'm Dad. Nice to meet you.
That's a classic.
Yeah. So okay. But trolls. Before we get into internet trolls, as it relates to us, let's talk about your hero.
Feed
the Ryback. As Bryan Danielson calls him, the Ryback. So Ryback took this opportunity to.
He always does.
Attack. Well, so here's the funny thing. He took the opportunity to attack CM Punk because CM Punk has gone on record, obviously, about how Ryback was so dangerous to work with and he was unsafe and so he took this opportunity. I also saw other people trolling Corey Graves, who had made a comment about the unprotected headshot to Jack Perry, which he then I think deleted like quickly, and now they're talking, oh, look what happened with Drew. So okay, a couple of things. Number one, there is a difference between an unprotected chair shot or shot with a metal box or whatever it is, where it hits you so hard that it can concuss you. It can, you can get that type of injury versus getting hit with it and getting cut. I don't know how hard Drew was hit with it. So I'm not going to defend that. Look, a headshot is a headshot. But it's different. You know, the argument back in the day was we didn't know any better, and now we do. Well, look, if you have that education now that, you know, Chris Nowinski's gone around and told everybody about it, and you still want to make that choice, then that's your choice, I guess, right? But I wouldn't really equate the two. I wouldn't equate this as like a headshot as much as just he got caught, you know, in just the wrong way with it, because you have to be caught in the wrong way. You can't, like, he had
like that?
16
Absolutely.
staples in his head. Like, that's just, yeah, man, that was brutal. Having said that, man, that added to the match so much. It was great.
Absolutely.
I don't talk about my, you know, this is how I put myself over without putting myself over. I don't talk about private conversations that I have with people in the industry, you know, but I did reach out to one of the members of that match, who is a longtime friend of mine for the last, you know, decade and a half. And I'm going to tell you, he felt every bit of that match. So if you're just like, oh man, yeah, they did a great job, but I don't, dude, that is not a regular wrestling match. They felt every bit of that. I thought it was phenomenal though. So going back to the trolls though, so Ryback's decided to troll CM Punk, then everybody trolled Ryback in response to that. This is just what Ryback does. I don't want to give him any more air. But I do want to mention trolls in the sense that you and I were attacked by a slimy little troll.
Yeah, what was that about, man?
So last week I mentioned something about which came off. I was trying to be a little funny with it, and I think it came off a little negative, which I didn't mean for it to. Where I was kind of poking fun at Blue Meanie a little bit for not giving me the credit, right? For talking about the blood in the ring at Over the Edge. The point of what I was trying to say was that Meanie didn't know 20 something years ago. And I think that that's incredibly important, because if he did know and this was a memory, then that kind of negates the whole argument of how people need to be educated, the poor people that were there that felt like they were wrestling on Owen's blood and all of that stuff. And Meanie's gone on to talk about that as well recently, that he himself is not trying to get some credit for this. The reality is, whether I'm the one who told Meanie or didn't tell Meanie or whatever the case was, who cares? It doesn't matter. But the fact that I mentioned it on a podcast, I said, hey, you know, it's out there on this podcast. You guys should give it a listen. And some troll decided to just come at me going like, you're lying. Blue Meanie told you about it. And I'm like, I mean, he didn't, but okay, you know. And he's like, no, he did. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, you deleted the episode of Mind of the Meanie. I'm like, what? Like, I don't even have access to delete the episode of Mind of the Meanie. So then, of course, I went and found the episode, and I sent him the audio clip, which was giving way too much time to this troll.
Yeah,
right?
man. Yeah.
Way too much time. And then he's all like, you know, you guys are nobodies, like coming in on you and on me and everything. And I'm like, well, okay, this nobody's being followed by you. Like, that's weird. Right. Like, what are you doing following me if you have such an issue with me? And, you know, I sent him the audio. I think you said to him, you're like, hey, I mean, he just sent you the audio, so just listen to it. And the guy, like, he wouldn't listen to it. You know, I ended up blocking him eventually.
I made friends with him, by the way. We're really good buddies now.
Are you really?
No, I'm kidding.
I was going to say, all he needs to do is just be like, I'm a Cowboys fan. And
no, not even that. Not even that. It's just like, he did take some jabs at me, and I was just trying to follow up and back you up. And he's like,
yeah,
you know, and then I say, it's like, and I literally, all you have to do is click on somebody's profile to understand what they're about, who they are. You know, it's like you could tell by the tweets and the likes and all this other shit. So it says it right in his bio that he was like like the best employee at Walmart ever or some shit like that, or a greeter, or so I said, I was like, how, like, who am I to tell you, buddy, that you're not the greatest cart pusher of all time? You've claimed it. You're that guy. And then, of course, the typical response out of this guy was like, that's not my real job. I'm well off.
I make more money than you.
I'm like, okay. He's like, oh, and how much money you making on podcasts? What's your other guy? I said, buddy, I own a fucking recording studio. What else? You need something else? Then he's like, oh, that's the, I bet you I make more money. I'm like, holy shit. This is all because
you don't think, you don't know who I am. You think I'm someone I'm not. And I'm like, bro, I don't care who you are. Like, why? I got so, but here's the thing. I when it was all said and done, I was angry, but I wasn't angry at him. I was angry at myself. This guy, like, whatever, who cares? This is, trust me, it's enough. The way that he has to live with this is being himself. Okay. So that's his punishment.
Does suck.
But for me, I was angry at myself that I took any of that time to even play into it. The only reason I think I did was because it was about something so sensitive with the Owen Hart stuff. And that I wanted to make it very clear that I was not trying to take credit for something. I just had not heard anyone else say it before. Since then, we had clips that went out about our show on like TikTok and things like that. People have commented going, I've been saying that for years. Hey, here's my post about it or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, like, I don't think I'm the guy who discovered this. Like, I just had not heard someone else say it. Meanie told me apparently 5 years ago on the episode that I found when I listened back to it, because I wanted to make sure, because listen, if I listened back to it and discovered that somehow Blue Meanie was the one who told me about it, or Blue Meanie said to me, yeah, I remember, I've known since that night, and I had forgotten, I would be the first one to go and make that post and apologize and say, hey, I'm sorry. So I wanted to listen back and make sure, because I started second guessing myself. But like, Meanie had even said, and I'd forgotten this, that he's like, yeah, I just recently heard someone else say this too, he named the podcast or whatever.
I'll say this one more, just one thing about trolls is that something I've learned is that the one thing to dethrone or stop a troll right in his tracks, right? If he's a troll locomotive, the only thing that's going to stop these people is if you're kind to them, if you're nice to them, even if they're fucking telling your mother should have some kind of disease. Like, you should come back like, man, I'm so sorry you feel that way, man. Hey, but listen, God bless. Good luck with the rest of your life. Like, dude, their heads explode like a pimple. It's just like pus everywhere. And it's just like, it's a mess.
And the only other thing better than that is just ignore them in general.
Or that too.
And that's what I should have done from the very beginning. I just felt it was, important, and it wasn't important. And I shouldn't have, I shouldn't have done
Happens
that.
to the best of us, Josh. Happens to the best.
The one other thing I've learned about trolls, and you're going to want to Google this, trolls come from acorns. They're born in an acorn patch. I know because I've seen them hatch. Anyway.
And by the way, to give you a brief side story about acorns, it's funny you should mention that, because forever, up until I'm 39 years old, so up until 39 years old and maybe like a week later than that, I thought they were egg corns.
So that's not like
my wife had to look
today's years old, right? That's not, you weren't today years old.
No, I was like 39 in like a week, because it happened like a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
But like, yeah, I was caught dead in my track. She's like, acorns. And I was like, yeah, acorns. And she's like, no. How are you spelling this? And I was like, EGGCO. She goes, what the what? And I'm like, oh shit. I was like, yeah. And I also once upon a time said that gauze, like, was like the gauze that go on your head.
Yeah.
I thought a singular was one gaw instead of gaw. So, guys, I have a education. Don't get it twisted. I do. I just have my moments. So
wow,
that's one of them. Yeah,
man. That people, a lot of people don't count an education as having like a middle school degree.
Bro, my daughter comes home with kindergarten work, and I'm looking at the directions, and I'm like,
it's a little too difficult.
What?
Yeah.
what is it? Like, explain to your child, blah blah blah. I'm like, what the fuck am I looking at,
My
dude?
kids
This
will bring
is
something home. They'll
stupid.
be like, "Can you answer this?" And I'll just be like, "Yeah, give me a second." And then I'll just go to my phone.
Yeah, my dad
I
just be
don't
like,
know.
bring the book home. Bring the book home. Anyway, back to
Yeah.
wrestling. I know it's a wrestling
Oh
hour after
man.
all, but
Hey,
yeah, books.
Crown Jewel. Let's talk about that for a second.
Sure.
Okay. Because here's once again where I'm gonna claim something, and then the internet's gonna get angry at me.
Ruh-roh.
So I've been saying this for like 20 something years to my friends. I haven't said this publicly. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure everybody said this, but I always felt ever since the first brand split, when they had the world heavyweight title and the WWE title, I always hated that. And that for me, it was a semantics thing, but I always hated that it didn't make sense. How can you have the WWE title and the world heavyweight title? Is the world heavyweight title not associated with WWE? Like, it didn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
And so they had, and then more recently, when they had the Raw Women's Champion, SmackDown Women's Champion, in the last, 5+ years, whatever it was, when that first 10 years, I don't know, whenever that first became a thing, it just drove home where I kept saying the same thing, where I kept saying it needs to be treated like NFC and AFC. Like, it needs to be treated like, to me, I kept saying, what if there was your Raw world champion, your SmackDown world champion, and they faced each other at WrestleMania.
So you want a Super Bowl is what you want. You want a 2024 world.
I want a 2024 WWE champion. That's what it should be.
I love that idea.
And then WrestleMania went to 2 nights. And I started thinking, well, that's tremendous, right? What if night 1 is that championship and night 2
the conference
championship.
Yeah.
And night 2 is your storyline stuff, right? Or vice versa. But it's kind of, it takes some thinking of what's going to be better. But it was just like, that to me is so much better than the Crown Jewel champion. Crown Jewel means nothing. That's my issue. Crown Jewel doesn't mean anything to in canon to WWE.
I think that's where Triple H and WWE are trying to steer the ship, where what could we do for Saudi? What could we do for these people to make it seem like it is the biggest thing that they've ever seen? And that's how you do it. You turn it into this massive show. Now, look, what does that do for me from a booking standpoint? What does that do to a Cody or a Gunther, whoever doesn't win this match? Now, to me, I don't think you're going to get a winner. I think it has to set up for whatever's down the road, or a bloodline thing or something, or Roman or something.
Well, that's what I'm saying, Mania, right? Because then it can play up into the next night, right? Like,
yeah. But I'm saying, like, if you have this Crown Jewel thing, nobody can actually walk out of there a winner, because if Gunther or Cody's like shoulders are on the mat, you take away the prestige to their respective championship. No,
I think you potentially take away the steam of them as champion,
whatever.
Right?
Yeah.
I think it's tough. I mean, Cody can afford to lose. I don't think Gunther can, unless we're setting up him and like Goldberg or something, which looked like it might happen. So here's the thing. Everybody rolls their eyes at that. And I at first did as well. But then I looked at it and said, like, dude, like, it's Goldberg. Like, isn't it kind of cool that we still get guys like a Goldberg, and it's all fake anyway.
Listen, I am 100% on board with nostalgia. I just want everybody to be safe. If Goldberg, the last time we saw Goldberg out
there, when has he ever done something not safe?
That's true, but yeah, exactly.
Hold on. We have a caller from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I digress. While you cough up your lungs over there.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell. I think it's the protein shake that's starting to tickle.
Yeah, protein. It's definitely binding to the proteins or something. COVID.
Yeah, of course. What happens?
So, you were saying?
Yeah, no. I love the idea behind it. If you hear the Goldberg music and the Goldberg entrance and the Goldberg sparklers and all that shit, I am all for it until the guy can't walk down the ramp anymore. I am all for that. However, the last time we saw Goldberg, it was a lot to be left to be desired.
Well, remember though, Goldberg talked on Chris Van Vliet's podcast, which shout out to Chris Van Vliet. Love the guy. Just such a good dude. And deserves everything that's come his way.
Sure.
Chris Van Vliet, though, was talking to Goldberg about it, and Goldberg said that apparently he had COVID, much like you right now. He had COVID.
Don't put that into the universe.
He had it like a couple weeks before that match that he had. So he like could barely breathe. He wasn't training. He wasn't doing anything. He was in bed sick with it when Vince McMahon called him and said, "We need you to do this." And he agreed to it, and I'm sure it was just for the love of the game and not for the millions and millions of dollars. But still,
yeah, of course.
He agreed to it. But he was kind of promised a last match. He was promised, like, okay, hey, I'll do this. We're going to get you your final send-off. And, I mean, I'm not really entirely sure why, but somehow Vince McMahon's not there anymore. And that
go back a couple.
And that just never, and that just never happened. And, you know, so I can see him wanting that one last match. Dude, you and I sit here having careers that were so unremarkable that nobody even knows that we were wrestlers. No offense or anything.
Yourself.
I know. Mine was pretty remarkable. But still, you and I constantly look at it, I should say, unremarkable compared to Goldberg. How about that?
Sure. Yeah, that makes more sense.
You and I look at our careers and still at, you know, you're pushing 40. I'm 30, 11.
You crossed that goal line again.
And we still will occasionally have that conversation. Like, oh man, one more match. It's not like the fans are clamoring for it. And it's not like it's going to be in front of a massive crowd of, you know, tens of thousands of people, and we're not getting paid millions of dollars for it. But there's that part, if you've ever done this to any level whatsoever, that's in there. And if you, like yourself and myself, if your career ended not exactly on your terms, you always have in the back of your mind, God, I could come back for one more. I could get that one more match. Now imagine you have experienced the heights of a Goldberg. You have experienced what that was to stand in the middle of the stadium in Atlanta, defeating Hulk Hogan and holding up the WCW championship. That is a rush that you and I have not experienced, and very few do, right?
No.
So I can only imagine, I can only surmise that is, I mean, that's a drug right there. Then when you get to a certain age,
across the board, every sport,
right, every sport. When you reach a certain age, you start looking in the mirror, you start seeing a couple more grays than you used to, and you start thinking to yourself, man, do I still have it? Can I still do this? Can I do it as well as I used to? And you know, it's little things like when I, you know, took the bump at your show over the ropes with AJ Francis, or when I took the kick from Jacob Fatu, that guy, when I took the kick from him, taking that bump after 15 years, there was a little bit of me that was just like, yeah, you know what? I can do this. Like I am capable of, like, I know how to do this. And so I look at Goldberg and I go from a human being standpoint, I go, good for you. Go get your millions of dollars and go get that last match. And guess what? Don't go over. Put Gunther over. Just like people forget he had that last match, he put Roman Reigns over. So put Gunther over and allow him to be able to go on forevermore. I'm the one who retired Bill Goldberg. You know, Baron Corbin. What's that?
His favorite wrestler.
Right. Baron Corbin ended Kurt Angle's career. But they've never done anything with that. They've never, and I thought he was a bad choice, not because I have some issue with Baron Corbin, I thought he was a bad choice because there was nothing to come from that. It should have been a guy who could have been like a Chad Gable, who could have been the next in line. Like, not only, okay, Chad Gable, not only was he an Olympian, but he actually retired the first ever Olympic gold medalist in professional wrestling. Like, there's something that, he's better than an Olympic gold medalist because he's defeated an Olympic gold medalist. Therefore, he's he's a platinum medalist. There were things you could have done, and I felt they missed the boat with Baron Corbin on that. But yeah, so I say Goldberg.
And you know what? I think that the pace of that match would probably be right up Goldberg's alley, to be honest with you. I think that they would work well together. Bunch of stiff shots. Yeah, I listen, I'm for it. I just hope that he's okay for it, as from a physical standpoint. From a mental and emotional standpoint, I totally get it, man. I took a bump in pre-show at Knuckle Brawl for Fight Factory Wrestling, and I was like, yeah, you know what? Josh, let's write out this year-long story, and let's get back into our thing.
It's time.
Right? Right, and it's time. And like, I thought for sure the next day I would feel it, and the next day I was like, nah, I'm good. Like, I remember I used to do this a lot, And I was a baby face pretty much 99% of my in-ring career, so there wasn't a lot of bumping and feeding involved. But I do remember taking some significant.
You lucky bastard.
I know. Why do you think I wanted to be a face? Just because I didn't want to bump, but and by the way, I wasn't fast enough to bump and feed. I couldn't get up fast enough. I was just a slow
I'm
person.
5'8" and was a heel. My entire career was bumping and feeding. That was It was just.
Who did I bump and feed for? It might have been Kevin Matthews. It was a match against one-on-one with Kevin, and I was the heel in that match for like one match only, and he was bumping me around and shit, and I was like, every time I got up, I'm like, fuck, I gotta do it again. But yeah, so I think Goldberg and Gunther would be fun. I just hope it's done correctly. And look, Triple H has not missed on anything lately, so I have all the confidence in the world that he would put it all together and make it as good as it possibly could be. And I'm for it. I'm a nostalgia guy. I still think I would love to see Shawn back in there one more time, but every interview I see with Shawn, I'm like,
to make up for that disaster.
Yeah, but every time I see Shawn in an interview, but by the way, they reenacted the DX. That was funny. But the fact is, I looked at Shawn and I'm like, my hero has gotten really old.
Shawn Michaels, bless his heart, is transforming into Bill Apter before our very eyes.
You're not wrong, and I love Shawn.
I don't understand how, but Shawn Michaels is, if you grew up, whether you wanted to be dancing or not, you looked at Shawn Michaels and went, man, that dude is so cool, right? So in your mind,
either that or back in the day, you're like, man, that guy is so gay, right? And back then it wasn't as acceptable as it is right now.
No, and we were so wrong because he wasn't happy, Dave, and we've learned that now. He wasn't happy.
In fact, the guy lost his smile.
Yeah,
for Christ's sake.
And you're just, he's happy and gay. No, he was going through stuff, man. He's going through stuff, but no, you would watch Shawn Michaels and go, man, that's like, I want to look like that. I want to look that cool, right? And it was the 90s, so that was cool. But then, man, you look at that, and it's just scary, the thought of how quickly that can become this, and I don't mean any disrespect to him, it's
I love Shawn, bro. He's literally the reason I got into wrestling in the first place. He's the only autograph I have in wrestling. You know what I mean? Like, he's the only guy that I clamor to be, but man, oh man, is Father Time just not treating my man Shawn Michaels very well. And look, you know what it is, and this is the true story about it. There was a lot of foul play in his career, and a lot of foul play, and no matter what, I know this from having a family member, personal experience of seeing that as young and spry as somebody could be, if you do all those drugs and alcohol, at the end of the day, you will age faster than anybody else, because that will never actually leave your system. So I know the partying and the fun shit that Shawn has done in his career has definitely, taken a toll, but he still has his wit. I think it's fucking hilarious.
I mean, there's also an aspect of it where the guy's at an age now, like, he'll be the first to tell you, like, he doesn't care. He's not vain anymore. He doesn't care. Like, I mean, it's so good on him. I mean, it's the thing is, if you met Shawn Michaels for the very first time, had never seen him before, you would not look at him and go, "Oh my God, what's wrong? How is this dude so old? Why is he looking?" No, he'd just be a dude. He'd just be a
Right.
regular dude. It's because we grew up with him, and I think also in a way, even though he was a decent amount older than us, I think when you're like 14, you don't realize that this 30-something-year-old is that much older than you. Because in your
Mhm.
mind, you're like, when you're a teenager, you're like, you think you're an adult.
And
So I
think about it, like,
think then when you
it,
hit your 30s or 40s and they're so much older, you're like, oh, well, that's crazy. Like, that shouldn't be.
and it's all in his name and his song. He's the Heartbreak Kid,
Yeah,
right? And he's
exactly.
a sexy boy, right? So all of a sudden, nah,
Yeah.
he's the Heartbreak Man, and
And he's just
he's not so
he's a
sexy
sexy
older man.
man.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, but so okay, Crown Jewel Championship though, man. I think it's a swing and a miss. I think it's a concept that could have been monumental and changed the game, and 20 years from now been something where you go like, man, I can't believe they were never doing this. How did they not do this for the first 20 years of the brand split? And instead, I think it's just gonna be, it's just
Well,
something.
if this is the direction that they want to go, and they want a crown jewel champion, I think it's pretty cool in a way where the goal is to, when is Crown Jewel? November. So
Yeah,
so by the time it hits November, you're the world champion. You know you're going to be fighting for the Crown Jewel Championship. So 5 years down the line, we might be talking about Cody Rhodes, 2-time Crown Jewel champion as well. So you're adding an extra element to their legacy if you
right.
think about it. Somebody could become a multi-time crown jewel champion, much like multi-time Super Bowl champion. They're just not doing it on the big stage of WrestleMania. That's all.
Exactly. And it should, to me, like I said, it should be WWE champion. It should be the Raw champion, SmackDown champion, and it should be the
I always
WWE champion.
I always said that if you're the champion, you should be on both shows.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, like, you got to have a championship schedule. That just makes it harder.
Yeah.
Right? The WWE champion has to, screw around with both rosters. Like, good luck. You're a target on everybody's back. And if they were to have these SmackDown Women's Champions and Raw Women's Champions and all that other shit, again, one championship, just one, right? Like, just, I don't know why. I just have this. You're under the same company.
Yeah.
So, like, enough with
You
I
can't
never, I
be
was
at the peak. Yeah. How can you reach the pinnacle when there's, like, imagine, like, I'm going to climb the tallest mountain in the world. And then I can look over to my left and I can see another mountain that's the exact same height. Like,
right.
it doesn't.
And you know what? You start to get into that conversation of one of the championships being lesser than. So, like, when Roman Reigns or Cody Rhodes wins the WWE championship, and you look over at Raw and you're like, oh, Gunther's the world heavyweight champion over there. But he's been a world heavyweight champion for 6 months, and the belt's been around for 2 years, so it really doesn't matter. And I know they were trying to make a homage to the OG, like, Flair belt, but, like, at the same time, I feel like it's a whole nother story. It's a whole nother legacy. You can't compare the two, unfortunately. I don't think you can, because they've been on multiple shows. So it's a little confusing in that regard. I do wish there was one champion across the board, whether that be Intercontinental, World Champion, Tag Team Champion, all that shit. I wish there was one champion, because it would make more sense of being the face of the company, let alone the night of the week,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. I agree. I think there was an opportunity that was missed with this. I think if you're going to do that concept, instead it kind of feels like just like a little gimmick for one show. It doesn't matter. Nobody is tuning in because, like, they had an opportunity to turn it into their Super Bowl championship, and they didn't. But hey, hopefully it'll still be cool. As we wind down here, I do want to say we talked about moments and things like that, like in people's careers. 25 years ago today, as we record this October 9th, 25 years ago today, I wrestled at a show that I promoted called Beyond the Grave. I was freshly 16 years old. We were written up in the newspaper, the local papers and everything. It was the Teenage Wrestling Foundation. You can see over my shoulder that championship right there is the championship that we had that Reggie Parks made for me. It was, from a bell-to-bell wrestling standpoint, atrocious, yet still better than a lot of indies today. From a story standpoint, it was great because we were a bunch of kids coming up with stories, right? Like, it was, the whole concept of what we were doing was, I looked around and I saw a bunch of high school kids doing theater, a bunch of high school kids wrestling, a bunch of high school kids playing football, playing baseball. And I said to myself, why can't you can do sports and you can do entertainment. Why can't you do sports entertainment? So I created, at 15 is when I created it, the Teenage Wrestling Foundation. And it was great until the State Athletic Commission shut us down. But we had this show in front of hundreds of people at the Fort Washington Expo Center. The ring was rented from the guy who would go on to become my trainer, Afa the Wild Samoan. It was an awesome, awesome night. And 5 years ago, I did, when I was working for Fight, I did a 20-year anniversary show with Calvin Tan, who was a manager for us, and now a lot of people who know me know Calvin, as he was our videographer and has done a lot of stuff with us. And a guy named Noah Sokolov, who played my opponent that night, and we kind of just broke down how a bunch of kids put on this like really professional appearing show, including how we had indie workers show up and train us that day so we could take certain bumps, things like that. It was kind of fun. And I realized that video is sitting on my my So Says Shernoff YouTube. So we're going to move it on over today onto the MyFandom YouTube.
Oh man, this is going to be
that
glorious.
Video of us kind of walking you through it and everything like that of this whole event. So yeah, man, I will say though, 25 years later, that was a moment for me at 16 years old that felt like walking out in front of that crowd of a few hundred people at 16. Like, I felt like it was the greatest moment of my career, and I chased that feeling for many, many years. And now, all these years later, on that same day, 25 years later, quarter of a century, I get to sit here with you, the Wrestling Hour. We get to be a part of, this is our debut show on adfreeshows.com. And I get to actually, for real, be a part of the business that I loved for as long as I can remember, and was doing anything I possibly could long before I was legally old enough. Anything I could to be a part of it. So thank you all for allowing me this platform and allowing me to be here. And thanks for joining us on Ad Free Shows. And if you're joining us not on Ad Free Shows and you're watching us on the MyFandom YouTube channel, we appreciate that very much. We appreciate you downloading the MyFandom app as well at myfandomapp.com. Not an ad, just something I'd appreciate, just from one friend to another. And yeah, but also if you don't want to watch us on the MyFandom YouTube, then go right now, subscribe, adfreeshows.com. More bang for your buck than it's ridiculous what you get at adfreeshows.com. So, Dave, any final words here?
Well, since we're talking about moments, I have to say that in 2012, in 3 days, October 12th, I can't even say it right. October, wow. I say October 12th.
October 12th? What is October? What are you doing?
October 12th. And that's the reason why I'm saying it like that, is because on October 12th, 2012, which is now 12 years ago, I delivered my first ever spear in a professional wrestling ring, in a professional wrestling match. That was my finisher. The second ever spear happened in that same match against a young, spry Chris Payne, who now is co-owner of Fight Factory Wrestling. And I have to point out that in that match, for whatever reason, Chris Payne decided to wear tassels on his boots. I don't know why. I'll never understand why, but that happened. And the reason why I say October 12th is because we cut a promo the week before the show, and he jumped me in the back, part of the story, and he grabs me by the shirt. He goes, October 12th, you feel the pain. And then he punches me one more time and leaves me just dead. So that's why I call it that. And, so we're all full of memories here. That's what wrestling's all about, man. It's creating memories. I'm very excited to see what you're about to drop because that's very funny. And I know Calvin and I know some of the guys.
Spoiler, I don't have a beard and I'm about 40 pounds lighter. So
kids, right? What
yeah, right. It's been a long, I know it's been 5 years, but you look at that and you're going to go, nah, it's more like 15. Yeah.
So, no, but thank you to adfreeshows.com for incorporating this show into your massive Rolodex of incredible content creators out there, real content creators, real guys that know the business and have been in the business. And we're not talking about those that are taking selfies in a press box and calling it a reaction video because you could have did that in your fucking basement, you fucking mark. Anyway, with that being said, for Dave Sturchio and Josh Shernoff, this has been another
all Dave Sturchio right there.
Loaded episode of the Wrestling Hour on adfreeshows.com and of course the MyFandom app, YouTube channel, and we'll see you guys next time.